Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us. So I'm just going to introduce myself and the project a little, and then we'll get started. So my name is Rebecca Scaris, and I'm the Settlement Video Coordinator at Immigrant Services Calgary. I'm currently working on the Smart Tips, the How To and Smart Tips video series. This project is actually almost complete. When it is complete, it will be 15 videos on a variety of topics that were chosen by newcomers. The videos are translated into Farsi, Arabic, Hindi, Spanish, French, Chinese, and Tigrinya. And there are more languages hopefully coming. You can find them on our YouTube channel or on our settlement platform, which actually has more resources, which I will show you now. Today, we're going to be talking about what skills do you need to work in Alberta. That's our newest video. So we're going to watch the video. I'll show you where to find it, and then I will introduce our two guests. You can find all our videos on our YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel is How To and Smart Tips, Immigrant Services Calgary, as you can see. Here are all the languages, the different languages. And then we also have a settlement platform. This is where you find the videos, the Smart Tip videos in the upper corner here. And I clicked on one of them, workers' rights, which might be another interesting topic that you're interested in learning about. And as you can see, the languages are here and we have some useful resources. So that is two places that you can find the videos. Today we're going to watch, I'm just going to make sure my sound is shared. We are going to watch our newest video right here. As you can see, it's in multiple languages. What skills do you need to work in Alberta?
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Could you be sure to send me the report on our event last week by 9:30 today? I need it for the meeting. You can just email it to me.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think you can finish it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Mohammed, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Can you finish the agenda before the meeting this morning?
For sure. What would you like me to do?
Could you type it up from the notes in the shared drive, add a date and title, and print 5 copies?
Type the notes into an agenda, add a date and a title, and make 5 copies for the meeting?
And can you please bring the copies to the meeting and make sure that everyone gets one?
Definitely. I'll make sure I'm there early to give everyone a copy.
Thank you. That'd be very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's start the meeting. Hi, everyone. Mohammed has handed out an agenda for this meeting. Has anyone seen Sarah? Chelsea, can you go and get her, please? Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
I didn't receive your report. Did you send it to me?
No, I started it, but I had some problems with my computer.
Well, why didn't you ask for help? I'm certain that someone else could have helped you, or you could have called me. Okay, well, maybe you could share with us how the event went.
Well, the event went well. There were some problems, but it went well, I think.
And?
Yes, as Sarah said, we had some problems, such as we ran out of food. But it was okay because we just quickly ran to the grocery store and got more. And everyone enjoyed the event.
Thank you, Mohammed. And how do you think we could do better for the next event?
I think we should get participants to register. For this event, we didn't make people register, so we didn't know how many would come.
I think that's a great idea. Okay, well, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Well, thank you, everyone. Just a reminder that today is employee evaluation, so please come to my office at your appointment time. Okay, Mohammed, let's get started. Did you bring your copy?
Yes, I filled in my section with what I think I did well and what I think I need to improve.
Great. Tell me what you think you did well.
I think I work well with my team. They often come to me to discuss problems, and I help find creative solutions.
I agree. I wrote that you work well independently as well as on a team. You're quick to come up with solutions to problems, and you're always punctual. Actually, you're usually the first one at meetings.
Yes, I hate to be late.
That's good. So what did you write that you could improve on?
I need to improve my communication skills. Sometimes I don't tell anyone I'm struggling. I want to communicate better with how I'm doing on projects.
I think that's a good goal. I look forward to hearing how you improve in our next feedback meeting. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. And I'll send you a feedback survey on this evaluation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah, it's your turn. Good luck.
Hi, Sarah. Please take a seat. Okay. I know that you're new here, but we always do performance evaluations around this time. We won't do a full evaluation, but I think it's a good chance to sit down and talk. Let's start with your attendance.
I think my attendance has been good. I am never late to the office.
You do come to the office on time, but you're often late to arrive at meetings, which makes us start late.
I'm sorry, I don't know when the meetings are.
They're sent to your email.
I locked myself out of my email.
Well, why didn't you say anything?
I was embarrassed. I'm not good at using computers.
Okay, well, after this meeting, I'll get someone to reset your email. But you really should ask if you're having trouble.
Okay.
Something you have done well is coming up with creative solutions to problems in a few of our meetings. I'd like to see you do that more often.
I sometimes have trouble understanding in the meetings, but I'll try to ask more if I don't understand.
Okay. I think that's enough for today. I'll send you the main points. You have a lot of things to focus on, Sarah. I may need to let you go if you don't improve.
Okay, thank you. I'll work hard.
Thank you.
There are many skills needed to work successfully in Alberta. Some of the most important transferable skills are effective communication. Be open, honest, and confident, but you must also be polite and professional. Tell your coworkers or your supervisor if you are struggling or have questions. Repeat back instructions to make sure you understand. This will eliminate miscommunication and mistakes later. Critical thinking and problem solving. If you are given a task, you are responsible to take initiative and figure out how to complete it. That may mean coming up with new ways to do things. Employers want employees that can adapt and that are always learning and growing. Self-improvement is very important. Work ethic and time management. Employers want you to finish assignments on time and manage your time wisely. Teamwork and collaboration. It is important to work well individually as well as on a team. This means being able to compromise and take responsibility for your tasks. It helps to get to know your coworkers personally and be approachable. You must treat all your coworkers equally. Learning these important skills will help you to be successful at finding and keeping a job in Alberta.
Okay, so that was a lot of information in one video. I know that that's quite a long video, but it has a lot of information. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our guests. I forgot to ask how to pronounce your name, so I hope that I don't say your last names wrong. Actually, I think Julie's doesn't have it, but yeah. Okay, so we have two guests here from EMCN in Edmonton. I love that we're collaborating with someone in Edmonton because I do feel like sometimes we just collaborate with Calgary organizations, so it's exciting. So we have two people here. We have Laurie and Julie, and I'll just tell you a little bit about Laurie first. So Laurie Hauer, passion for supporting newcomers has kept her working with the Edmonton Mennonite Center for Newcomers for more than 30 years. During her career with EMCN, she has worked in the areas of settlement, language support, and community development. But for the past 20 years, she has specialized in career and employment programming. Laurie's current role is Senior Manager of Employment and Training Programs. So welcome, Laurie. And finally, we have Julie. Julie joined the Edmonton Mennonite Center for Newcomers 4 years ago, bringing extensive intercultural experience from over a decade as a consultant in adult education. She has instructed Canadian culture and communications for the Bridging and Training Department, as well as developed the curriculum for the Immigrant Women's Employment Program. For the past 3 years, she has also been involved in several projects, including being the lead for EMCN's e-learning department. Julie loves what she does and believes strongly in the importance of supporting newcomers as they establish themselves in Canada and Alberta. So welcome, both of you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And we'll just ask you a few questions just to warm us up, and then we'll let you get into your presentation. So I guess my first question is, how and why are you involved in this project, the Smart Tips project?
Right. Well, so first of all, thank you very much, Becca, for giving us an opportunity to come and speak with everyone, and also the opportunity to work together with ICS. It's been, like you noted earlier, like a dream of ours to be able to collaborate, not just within Edmonton, but to reach out further. And I think that's one of the main reasons that we are involved in this project, is that we are agencies with very similar directives, and we came together to share our experiences with one another, and then realized that we have the opportunity to be able to share those experiences in a much broader perspective to immigrants and newcomers across Alberta and maybe even wider. And we also share a common desire to be open and honest with people and get them the right information so that they can settle and contribute to the Alberta community more successfully and quickly.
That's a great answer. Okay, so in my second question, what do you think is the one thing that newcomers struggle the most with in employment in Alberta?
Obviously, there's a lot of struggles, as we know, but talking with a lot of our clients and students and et cetera, one of the main things seems to be just that, where do I start? Where do I start trying to figure out how to navigate this new country that I'm in, the new systems, et cetera. So there's kind of a shift in the way that they think. So it's about being open to learning how things work in their new environment. And that can be very intimidating when you've already come to a new country and everything you know is different. So that's kind of hopefully where agencies like ours come in and make it a lot easier for them to be able to approach that.
Have a presentation you prepared, which is awesome. So yeah, let's get started on that.
Sure. All right. Hopefully everybody can see everything here.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, Laurie, back here.
Just thank you very much, everybody, again. And we're really glad to be here to share some insight with all of you today. And just want to encourage you to not be afraid to ask questions in the spaces provided on Facebook. And we will definitely get to your questions towards the end of the presentation, but don't hesitate to ask now so that you don't forget. And so Julie and I are going to spend the next 20 minutes or so with you, just touching on some of the most important skills that you need to work in Alberta and understand that a little bit more. What I do want to do is tell you a little bit about EMCN and who we are so that you have a little bit more context to that. So EMCN is an immigrant serving agency that's been in Edmonton for more than 40 years. Actually 40 years this year. We're celebrating our anniversary. Generally speaking, we have 3 areas of service: settlement, employment, and language. And within the employment area, it's really critical for us to be engaged with employers of all different sizes. So when I talk about different sizes, I mean companies that are large, like hundreds of employees, or medium or small, when there might be just 3 or 4 people working for them, and also companies that are local, so within Edmonton or in Alberta, national, so across Canada, and international companies. And what we do when we connect with them is we make sure that we're always well informed with what it is that they're looking for, what kind of hiring practices they're doing, what they're looking for when they're hiring people, and also changes within the industry. So that means new trainings that they might be requiring people to have, or other additional skill sets that might be new that we need to be aware of. And obviously, one of the other things that we do is work together with these employers to help them meet their employment objectives and successfully recruit, and maybe more importantly, retain or keep employees once they've hired them.
Right. Thanks, Laurie. So before we get into some specifics that are related to the wonderful video we just watched, what I want to do is kind of bring everybody to a place that you can kind of think about things in a little bit of a different way. And I borrowed this from somebody that I used to work with. His name was Jim. He had a really good sort of example of how to sort of shift how you think about things, especially when it comes to coming to a new country and learning how things work. So consider soccer, or as some of you prefer, and I agree, I call it football. I lived in the UK. I will always call it football. But soccer, great game, and plays by very specific rules. In Canada, we're familiar with hockey, another game, just as good of a game, plays slightly different, right? So what's important to understand about this is, as I mentioned, both of these games have some shared rules. So both of them involve scoring on a net. Both of them involve teams. So they definitely have shared rules. But it's important to understand that soccer also has very specific rules. And so does hockey, right? So for instance, soccer you play with by kicking a ball. And in hockey, you use the sticks to hit a little rubber thing called a puck, right? In soccer, I think you have 11 people on the field. In hockey, you have 6. So what's important about this and why this is significant is to understand that, you know, you're going to play different rules when you're playing different games, right? And the question you need to ask yourself with this is, how successful would you be at hockey if you're playing by the rules of soccer? Right. So that just gets us thinking a little bit. And why that's significant for what we're talking about is, like soccer and hockey, different countries do have shared rules or guidelines about things like social behavior, work behavior, etc. So there are going to be those shared rules, those things that are going to be similar, but different countries will also have their specific rules. Right? So every country in the world is going to have things that work very specifically in a particular way. And that's the same for Canada. Right? So the question then becomes, how successful would you be at working in Canada if you played by the rules of a different country? Right? So what does all this mean? Why is this important? Well, different games, as we said, are played in different ways. They're not better or worse, just different. Right? And you need to be open to learning how to play a new game. So the question then becomes, how do you do that? How do you make that easy? How do you, start to learn and adapt to what this new game is going to require from you? Go ahead, Laurie.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the skills that an Alberta employer might be looking for. and we're going to focus right now on technical skills. So technical skills sometimes are referred to as work-specific skills, are knowledge and abilities that you have and that you use in order to accomplish a specific task or duty. So as an example, that could be your ability to use a specific computer program like Microsoft Word, or if you were an engineer, AutoCAD, or perhaps your ability to operate a specific piece of equipment like a forklift or a cash register. So those are very technical skills. Most people believe that these skills are the same everywhere. But it is important to understand that even technical skills can often be different from country to country. And even if you have a strong set of technical skills, you may not be able to just walk into a job in Alberta and go to work, right? Just jump in and start because there's these differences. And in addition, what's also important to understand is that in Canada, employers do not necessarily see technical skills as the most important skills for you to have, because technical skills can be taught, and they can be taught on the job.
And so that transitions into another type of skill that employers are looking for. Some of you may have heard this term before. Some of you, excuse me, it might be new, but that's something which is referred to as a soft skill. And these are more skills that surround things like an ability to get along and work with others. So some of those soft skills would be things like teamwork. How do you interact with people? Are you easy to work with? Are you challenging to work with? In a lot of job ads and in a lot of interviews, employers will ask, like, do you prefer to, work as a team or work independently? The secret of that is, even if your job seems to be very independent, you are still going to need to interact with other people. So those teamwork skills are going to be very, very important. Another aspect of this is communication. Okay. Being able to communicate clearly and consistently about all sorts of things is one of those things that is really important, because it does establish things like trust. And we're going to delve into that a little bit more as we move on. Another aspect of this is adaptability. So the ability to sort of roll with change and not only roll with the change as it comes, but also anticipating change. And that links into soft skills as well. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. So we're going to start with some aspects of teamwork. And in the video that we saw previously, we saw some examples of things that occur in the workplace that do connect with a team. So part of what this video was talking about is dependability. So your employer, but also all of your coworkers, want to know that you can be counted on. So one of the things that we saw with Sarah is that, she was late to the meeting. She didn't really have her information, especially as it's connected with what they needed for the meeting. And these are the kind of things that sort of affect your team's ability to depend on you. And remember that people can't get their things done if you don't get your things done. Right? So it's that thing about developing trust. I need to know that you're going to do your part in order for me to be able to do my part. But one of the things that we saw with Sarah is that she did say she ran into some problems. So we are going to talk about how to deal with that effectively, because you're never going to necessarily be able to have everything go perfectly, but there are appropriate ways of reaching out for help or making sure you do get your what you need to do your job. Another important aspect of teamwork, and it links into this dependability, is time management. Now, one of the things that is really surprising for a lot of newcomers that I know that we've worked with is that the way that they are used to sort of managing their time is a little bit different. Again, different rule for a different game. But in the game of living and working in Canada, it's important to know that time is very strictly observed. And it's really it's really kind of vital that you understand what that means. So for instance, let's say the meeting that they were having here was at 10 o'clock. They wouldn't, in a Canadian office, you wouldn't just be walking into that meeting at 10 o'clock. You would be there, at least if you're in the office already, you'd be there at least 5 minutes ahead of time so that you can get seated, so that you can get your agenda out and everybody can be in place so that the meeting can start at 10 o'clock. And that can be a very big shift for some people. I remember talking with a student once and he said, well, where I, lived before, if the meeting was at 10, everybody would come at 10:15, and that wasn't abnormal. That's just what happened, right? So it's that interpretation of time that can be, something that you have to adapt to. And so things like time management and dependability are connected with one another. And it's the ability for people to be able to handle those things effectively that's going to develop that trust, and it's going to give you a good sort of a good face to show to your fellow employees and your employer. And that's going to do a lot for your professionalism. When we talk about communication as another aspect of these soft skills, so we were talking about the fact that Sarah had said that she had run into some difficulties. Being a good employee doesn't mean that you never have difficulties, but it means that you need to ensure that you are tackling those difficulties effectively. And that involves letting someone know if there are issues. If you're having difficulty with your computer, you talk to the, computer experts, you talk to the IT people in your department, or a fellow coworker who might be able to help you. So that's another shift that sometimes is difficult for newcomers, because they might come from a culture where, by admitting that they're having difficulties, might not reflect very well on them in the workplace. But here, by saying, I'm having an issue, can you help me, would be the appropriate thing to do. And that way, whatever you are doing would still have an opportunity to get done on time, because you had help to achieve that. So don't be afraid to ask for help. But be aware of your body language. So this is something that popped up a few times with Sarah in the video, is that she often kind of gave the impression in her body language, even if she was saying one thing, her body language said another. And so it was this lack of confidence, lack of being sure of what she was doing. And what that would say to her coworkers and boss would be, I'm not confident. I don't know what I'm doing, right? So you just want to make sure that you have good control over that, and you know that your face and what you're saying are actually communicating the same thing. Another thing I want to mention about this section about asking for help, we're going to talk a little bit on the next slide about being kind of taking initiative for things. Part of that initiative is knowing when you don't have all the correct information and knowing, oh, I have to ask somebody or I have to research something. One important thing to remember about this, though, is asking for help is okay, but if you're not making the effort to write down the directions that you've received and making sure that you don't have to constantly ask about the same thing over and over again, that will be something that is seen as a little bit more negative. So you may have to ask a couple times, like, oh, can you show me how to do this again? But after a few times, you should have that information to be able to kind of do that on your own. So just to clarify that point. Another thing about communication, when we're taking a look at some examples of Mohammed from that video, he was very good at making sure he understood what was going on. And so for one of the examples, it meant that when he was asked to do something, he basically set it back to the person, and that allowed that person an opportunity to see if he understood clearly. And that's a really wonderful way to ensure that you know your direction going forward. It's also important to problem solve. One of the things, again, that's very difficult sometimes for newcomers to kind of get used to is the fact that when you are hired in a position in Canada, in Alberta specifically, you're hired because the assumption is you know how to do your job. Okay. And so you're not going to have every single thing that you do on a day-to-day basis at work be directed by your supervisor. And in some places, you actually are not even allowed to make a move or take initiative on something without your supervisor telling you. Again, different rules for different games. You know, one thing works in one game, the other works in another. So in Canada, Alberta specifically, the ability to problem solve and look for solutions to problems are really big. One of the things that I will suggest with this is that if you run into a problem and you still might need to reach out to a supervisor or coworker, try to come up with a plan and say, I'm running into this problem, but I think I might be able to do this. This is what I have planned. You know, do you think this would work? Bringing a plan or bringing a solution, even if it's not a solution that works, does show that you've done some research and you are taking initiative. So again, initiative, that's a really important thing. Don't wait around to be told what to do, because in Canada, you know, people don't do that. They will assume that you will do it. And another word for this is being self-directed, right? So you are in charge of yourself about doing your work and deciding how that gets done. Doesn't mean you can't ask for help, but you are the one who is steering that ship forward. And I will let Laurie talk about honest reflection.
Thanks, Julie. So I'm speaking about this now because this is one of the most important soft skills that I believe as a hiring manager you can have. It's an absolute additional skill that's critical to your success in your workplace, and it's the ability to be honest and reflect on the work that you're doing. I know it's tough because culturally speaking, I'm a Canadian-born person, so innately inside of me, we're actually taught from a very early age to reflect. We're reflecting in many different parts of our lives. You might even want to say just sort of embedded in the Canadian culture for it to be normal that we do that for ourselves. But this certainly is not the case for many other cultures. But that ability to reflect carries over into the workplace and is a very critical part of your workplace success. There'll be in times like you saw in the video where you're invited into formal and informal conversations with your supervisor about your work. So you saw both Mohammed and Sarah go through what the video called a formal performance evaluation. These are very common. They happen in the workplace, often on an annual basis, sometimes even more regularly. And when they're not formalized, like what you saw in the video, sitting down, they're often informally happening in chit-chats in office spaces or in lunch rooms. These evaluations, whether they be formal or informal, help an employer, help me, and you to share and understand how you're doing. And I want to hear you reflecting on things like your successes, the challenges that you're experiencing, and your needs and your desires for further learning and skill development. I want to know that you're aware of who you are. And it's not considered a weakness in Alberta or in Canada to identify and speak about things that you are not doing well or things that you want to further develop, or in some cases speak about mistakes or errors that you've made, because I want to know that you're human, but I also want to know that you've learned from that experience and then how that's affecting your work in the future. All of these things are extremely important for your success within the work environment within Alberta. And I do want to say, just as an additional comment in regards to soft skills, is that I firmly believe that soft skills, they're developed from your experiences, but one of the most important things that they do is they reflect your attitude. They tell me, as someone who hires you and then supports you in the job, how much interest, how much desire, how much passion, how much commitment you have to your role and to me as an employer. And if I'm not feeling that, if I'm not seeing that, if you can't reflect, if your communication skills are appearing to be challenged, if your teamwork skills are appearing to be challenged, the likelihood is that you're going to end up losing your role as a result of that.
Awesome. Thank you. So with the things that we've talked about, one of the questions that people have is like, okay, so how do I go about preparing myself and improving in these areas? So what can you do? It's really one of the biggest things I can tell you is to observe. When you're in this new environment, you've already made this huge transition, and it's really going to take its toll on you in a lot of ways. It might be for the better, but getting used to any new environment is going to be difficult. And when you're already dealing with a lot of new things, it can put a lot of pressure. So the environment's different, as most of you will know, and say the weather is potentially different from where you came from previously. So start just by keeping your eyes open and watching everything. We already have talked about the fact that, you know, the rules and behaviors are different from place to place. So we know that there's difference, and we know that that can be different for country. It's also different from province to province. So again, even though there might be similar things from one province to the other in Canada, there are going to be some differences as well, in little things and in big things. There's going to be differences in different industries. Okay? So what you would do if you were in the oil and gas industry would be different than what you would do if you were, let's say, you know, working at an office or in a restaurant. So again, you want to witness as many of those things as possible and gather information. It can also be different from location to location. So let's say you're working at an organization and you are working in a downtown location, but maybe you go to a location on the south side. The environment and how people work might be different just for that. So be prepared to kind of take in that information and then make notes to yourself about what you see. Other things that you can do is be prepared to adapt. You already have this skill set by coming to a completely different country to kind of, you know, start a new life. You've already shown that you have the ability to adapt. A lot of times, though, newcomers can suffer from adaptation fatigue, and they're like, I've already, you know, come to a new country. Things are different. You know, what more can you ask? But that's that attitude shift that Laurie and I have been talking about, is that, yeah, we all appreciate that it's difficult, but you do kind of need to keep that momentum going, because there's a lot more that you need to adapt to. And by adapting, you are going to find the success that you're looking for. So some things to kind of keep in mind with this is start to experience. And this happens well before you enter the work world. So start to experience things. Start to do things like talk to people. Expand your group of people that you interact with outside of your cultural kind of bubble. So make friends with Canadians or people from other cultural groups, because you'll learn a lot more. And sometimes that learning can be a lot easier because there's a lot less pressure when you're sitting talking to a friend, and you can kind of learn in a much more comfortable way about, what do you think about this? What was your experience with this? Another thing that I would recommend is when you make these connections, and now we kind of have a very unique time, of course, because we're not out and about as we normally would be, but you can make connections in a lot of different ways. For some of you, it might be something like on a LinkedIn profile, trying to make connections through that. It could be volunteering at a community agency, and a lot of the agencies right now do have ways for you to volunteer online. So it's an important thing to reach out. But again, just having conversations with people, and this can happen well before you enter the work world. Another great thing about volunteering is not only will it get you out and get you experience, but one of the things that is that some of you have already kind of heard is that Canadian employers or Alberta employers are looking for people with Canadian experience. So what does that actually mean? What it means is that they want to know that you are going to transition into their existing place of work and their existing team well. Okay. By volunteering, what you're able to do is you're able to get that experience and work with other people and show that you have those soft skills. And that's a really great thing to put on your resume, because that will actually go a long way to showing a potential employer that you've worked with Albertans and Canadians, et cetera, and it seems to have worked out fine because you volunteered, at this agency or for this event. So those are some things that you can do to kind of prepare yourself for kind of dealing with that sort of question that employers would have when you apply. So don't discount it. Also, too, like I said, it just can open up your experiences, and you can meet so many people, and that's a great way of making connections. There's a lot of people who may have found out about job opportunities through people that they volunteered with or through the volunteer organization that they work with. So so that's a really important area. So all of these things we've been talking about, one of the things that it's important to remember is that employers are looking for a good fit. Okay. What does that mean? They want somebody who will fit in the quickest and best. Okay. So these soft skills are hugely important for that. And one of the things that I just want to share a little story, something that happened recently, is some previous students, a class of previous students. We had a student who is almost done her program, and she actually managed to get an interview and went for this interview. She has had no Canadian experience at this particular industry, but she went in for the interview, and she ended up being offered the position. Now, what was significant about that is a coworker of mine was talking to the person that hired her and saying, well, what made you hire this candidate? And they said she had the least amount of experience, but just her personality, we just knew she would be able to be a good fit. She's got the training, but we knew that if we brought her in, she would fit with the team, which means everything else, we can give her that experience on the job. Right. And that is not an isolated incident. That is a very, very important thing to remember, that, again, often people will choose somebody who they know will blend in with the team and has the ability and willingness to learn and to work, but they choose based off of who's got the skill sets to interact with people. Right. So a very, very important aspect. Another thing that I just want you to kind of keep in mind is we've been talking about, what do employers want? Why do they want this? Why is it so important that they find somebody who is a good fit? And speaking as somebody who has previous HR experience, I can tell you that one of those considerations, oftentimes people don't really understand unless they've been in the position to hire people. And that is the cost of hiring. So when I hire somebody, I want to know that I'm hiring somebody who has a good chance of staying for a considerable length of time. And the reason for that is if I'm hiring for, let's say, a clerical or support staff person, the job ads, the time that it takes HR staff to go over applications, to interview people, to do second interviews, to check references, etc., it adds up to be about $3,300. Okay, so that's the cost of hiring one clerical or support position. For a technical position, that goes up then to about a little over $13,000. Right, and for management and professional, $17,000. Right, and these values are pulled from CanadaHRCenter.com if you want to take a look at that site, but it's echoed by a lot of other areas out there. And it just goes to show you that when you are hiring somebody, it's a big investment. So they want to make sure they're choosing somebody who is going to be worthwhile the investment. And if I hire somebody and they don't get along with the team I already have, not only might I have to do all that over again and it takes time, but I'll have to invest that money again. Right. So it is something really important to think, because a lot of times we think of this just as the aspect of somebody who wants the job saying, well, come on, give me a chance, give me a chance. But when you understand the employer side of it, you might be able to go, oh, I understand why this is so important. And it might help you understand why you really need to make sure you're enhancing those soft skills. And I'm going to let Laurie wrap up here for us.
Sure. And I just want to add to what Julia said that when I'm in a position to hire, I look for what I'll call added value. And what I define that is other ways a person that I hire can contribute to not just their role, not just the team that they're working with, but also in my particular case, EMCN as a whole. And I also think not just about the position that I'm hiring them for, I think about future possibility. So that added value element is really important. So I might be hiring someone for a specific role that, let's just say, administrative, but I'm thinking about, like, where could this person also contribute? What else can we do internally to help support growth and development and, advancement within EMCN? And most employers are thinking that way because, as Julie highlighted, I don't want to go through that hiring and training orientation process over and over and over again. I want to sustain my employees and retain them and also further develop and support them. So with everything that Julie has said and I have shared, let's talk just in summary as to why this is also important and why it's important to understand the value of employers' place about soft skills. I mean, basically, technical skills may get you the job. I've heard many stories from people saying, I got the job because I can use this specific piece of equipment or this specific, computer software, et cetera. But soft skills will help you keep the job. And as I said, will help you grow, will help you further develop. It will help you get raises. It will help you get promotions. It will help you learn new things that you can take to new employment opportunities in the future. And most importantly, what I said earlier was that it'll help you keep the job, which is a really critical element to an Alberta workplace. And I just want to close with a story that from an employer, just to accentuate the importance of soft skills. This employer was asked in a Q&A session with a number of our clients if they could reflect on the number of employees that they hired over the past year or so, and how many employees they fired over the past year or so, and then reflect on why these employees were fired. And when they reflected on that question or those questions, their response was that they did not fire a single person because of weak or developing or lack of technical skills. Everyone who was fired because of challenges and problems directly related to their soft skills. Every one of them. So an employer does understand not just the value of soft skills, but also understands that they can develop technical skills in the workplace. And those are not as critical to your success. And with that said, I just want to say thank you so much for this great opportunity to share our knowledge with you in this collaborative way, and invite you to reach out to us. I think Becca's also going to share a link with all of you that you can click on directly, but these are some of our contact information. Please don't be afraid to reach out. I do respond to every single email that I get. And if I'm not the right person, I will direct you to the right person. And once again, on behalf of EMCN, and I want to thank ISC for letting us come and spend this morning with you. And to everyone out there who's watching and who'll be watching in the future, thank you so much from Julie and I.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome. I like how you broke down everything. Basically, the video was like, here's all this information. You guys explained it more clearly. Questions? If anyone has questions, feel free to ask them. Sorry, I'm just looking at the Facebook Live on my phone at the same time. I don't know. I had a story that kind of came up in my mind too. Is like kind of not taking. So language barrier is often a thing too, right? You might make some mistakes with language barrier, like just saying the wrong thing. And so there was a story that was told to me that there was a gentleman, and he was a newcomer, but he was doing very well in his job. And one day he tried to say he was like overloaded with work because he had heard it in a previous meeting. So he just wanted to use that word. He was like, yes, I'm going to use this word in the next meeting. And so in front of everyone, he yelled, "I'm loaded." And everyone started laughing at him because, you know, in English, that means either I'm drunk or I'm rich. But they kind of took it as I'm drunk. So they laughed at him kind of at what he said, right? But he took it very personally. And then his performance went down. And eventually, I don't know if he got let go or he eventually had to be talked to. But yeah, I think it's important to also realize that you're going to make mistakes because it's a new environment, and that's okay. You just got to like learn and ask for help if you need help and move on, kind of thing. Because just this one mistake and he was so embarrassed, right? You're going to be embarrassed sometimes. That happens for sure.
I think it's really important for when those things happen is, like you said, don't be embarrassed, but don't hesitate to ask and just say, oh, why is everybody laughing? And just realize again, you know, that's different words mean different things. And, you know, I feel lucky that English is my first language because I wouldn't have to want to learn it as a second language. It is a crazy language and we've got those kind of things all over the place. So most people are more than happy to, you know, take the time and be patient and say, oh, well, this is actually what it means. And just realize that more people are much more willing to do that. And it is more of a, you know, let's laugh together rather than at you kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I like the aspect of like, you have to take initiative. You got to ask for help. You got to ask for clarification because people don't always offer that. So if you don't ask for it, nobody's going to help you. And if you keep, and like you said before, if you keep asking too, that also gets annoying. Because I know that someone I was talking to recently said they got a new coworker and the coworker just didn't learn anything. Like they would teach it to them and then they would come back and the coworker would be like, so again, could you tell me how to do this? And they were like, they're never going to learn. So the onus like is on you to learn, right? So.
Well, you know, Becca, in that example that you shared, it's a learning opportunity for the other people that are in the room too, right? So to ask the question like, wow, what was so funny? And I'm trying to understand, and did I say something incorrect, whatever it is. For me, if I were sitting in that room, it increases my awareness piece too and says, oh, okay, wait a minute. So like maybe this is a terminology or maybe that someone's not understanding, and it increases my awareness to these things. And then I carry that forward to when I'm having communication with other people. So consider it a learning opportunity for everyone involved, not just that person has to be the one that's learning, right?
Yeah, because we work in diverse working environments now. So we're going to have things come up that we don't understand or that we need to learn about for sure. And I have actually an example for that as well. I was talking to someone about their workplace and they said that they had to fire a man because he kept washing his feet in the sink in the bathroom and making a mess. And I assumed that it was because of religious practice. He had no room, no space to go and do his prayer. So he was using the bathroom. And they explained to him a few times, but then they just laid him off. And like a better solution might have been to give him a space that had somewhere where he could pray and wash his feet at the same time. Right. So like, yeah, I think it's important that employers are also learning from all these experiences because it's important to have newcomers in your workplace and they do bring a lot of value.
Absolutely. I think one thing I'd like to highlight too, like when we talk about communication, we're not just talking about the ability to speak a language, because you can ensure someone understands you and you can ensure you understand others from a varying, scope. You don't have to speak English, quote unquote, fluently to do that. In fact, I've met a lot of people in my lifetime. When I studied at the university, I had a professor who was an expert in a particular area of social work. And I was so excited to be part of his program and in his classroom. And I left every lecture not knowing what on earth he just talked about. And he spoke English, he was Canadian. It was his way of delivering the information and what choices of vocabulary he used and how fast he spoke. And we use this term, spoke over people's heads. So all those things are what I call speaking over my head. When I don't understand what you're saying because of choices of vocabulary or speed, all those kinds of things, you're not a good communicator. So because sometimes people confuse communication skills with language skills, and those they go hand in hand, or they're parallel to one another. But you can speak something very well but not be a very good communicator. You can also speak a language not well, not as well, but be a very good communicator because you pay attention to those kinds of things and ask questions and paraphrase and repeat things like that so that you do understand. So just so that people understand those, they're different.
Yeah. And I think also it's interesting because communication could be culture, right? So I find that some colleagues I've had throughout my working career, avoidance was a communication method. So they wouldn't tell me if they were having trouble. And I was supposed to kind of understand that that meant that they needed help or that they were behind or something. But then I would just wait for them to take the initiative to tell me that they're having trouble. And they wouldn't, right? And then that would lead to like conflict because I'd be like, why didn't you do your work? And they'd be like, well, I couldn't figure it out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like communication is like an art, definitely.
And a good example of two people playing by rules of two different games, right? So perfect example of how that doesn't always work very well.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's funny. I almost think that communication is like the most important skill of all of them because it factors into everything. And if you have bad communication, like Laurie, you talked about your professor. I also had a professor that he just spoke all the jargon and the words from his, because he was a doctorate of anthropology. He spoke at the level of a doctorate to a bunch of people that were level 1, basically. And so he would be talking and we'd all just be sitting there like, I don't understand anything in this class. So we all thought we were going to fail the test because just the way he worded things, the way he wrote his tests was terrible. So talking to people is definitely an art.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you guys have any final thoughts or anything?
I think for me, I just hope that for the people that were watching, hopefully these things are making sense. Both EMCN and your agency, we all have materials on YouTube and things like that. Reach out, contact us, let us know how we can help support you. And that's what we're here for. And that's why we're pairing together, is so that we can be, we do very well in our individual places, but we're going to be much stronger together because, of course, we have people moving from Calgary to Edmonton and Edmonton to Calgary and all over Alberta. So it just makes sense that we pool our resources and just know that we are welcoming and that we will certainly try to help you in any way we can.
Exactly. Yeah. Laurie, any final thoughts?
I just want to invite everyone to be brave and be curious and ask questions and, enjoy yourself and your opportunity to learn, and know that I'm not afraid for people to ask me questions and ask for clarification and show that curiosity. That's something that's really engaging and interesting to me as well. So don't be afraid to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, both of you, Julie and Laurie, for coming, and EMCN. And I hope that we'll have more partnership activities, because YouTube channel, which I encourage you to go to and subscribe so that you can see our next video, which is actually about employment as well. And yeah, that's it for us. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.